Okay, the third video we're doing in this from this session is you ask for Legal's mate. And yeah, that can come on the board. It won't happen a lot because black has to fall for it. And the sequence of moves has to happen exactly according to what we're going to look at now. But it comes from the e4, e5 opening. And I know you're an e4 player. And most of your opponents play e5 on their first move. So that's already in the right direction.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a trick you have to know. And there's different versions of it. We'll look at one version. But so it's something to keep an eye on.
So here, Rick, I would play f3 with the knight.
Knight f3.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then most of your opponents will play knight c6.
Yes.
Just to protect the guy that you just attacked. Yeah.
Right. And then I would play here bishop c4.
Bishop c4. Yeah, that's a good move. And you put your... I'm sure we talked in the past about the weaknesses on f7, f2, the weakest squares on the chessboard, only protected by the king in the opening. So bishop c4 puts its finger on that sore spot already, and that's what Legals will see that later in the variation. But now he has to be cooperative. He has to play d6, and not all of them play that. But let's say he plays d6.
Yeah, I would play knight c3.
Knight c3 can never be a bad move. Developing a piece towards the center. And now we only get into Legal mate territory if he plays bishop g4 here. If the bishop doesn't go on that diagonal, there's no Legal's mates. But if they play that...
Rick, can I ask, if he was to play knight f6, Legal's mate off the cards?
Yeah, after knight f6, there's very unlikely to be a Legal's mate. It can still happen if he plays bishop g4 next move, and it could still happen. It's something to keep an eye on. Does Legal's mate work here or not? But it's unlikely to happen after knight f6. Sometimes they play bishop e6 here, and I think we talked about that as an option to blunt your bishop on c4, or at least help the f7 square. Well, then there's no Legal's mate, because Legal's mate is all about sacrificing the queen with the bishop on g4 and the knight plays. So, but okay, let's look at. So if you play bishop g4, then you say, "Ooh, this could go towards Legal's mate."
Yeah.
So what would you play in this position?
I think it's on now, isn't it? So it'd be knight e5.
Yeah, it is on, but not. I'm happy you said knight takes e5, because knight takes e5 is a little bit too early.
Okay, so
but
okay, that's it. I'd play. I know the answer to this. Pawn h3.
Yeah, but pawn h. So let's go back
before this.
Yeah.
Before. Yeah. So I'd play pawn h3 here.
Yeah, and why? Why? What is the difference? I play pawn h3
because if I've seen it, you see, I'm patching together a bit of material. So if he moves his bishop to h5 and then I take, I haven't got to worry about the bishop. Where, oh yeah, because if I take and he takes my queen, then I obviously would take bishop f7.
Okay, let's look at Legal's mate first, and then we look at why it has to go in this move order. So you're right, he plays bishop as h5, and now we're going to put a Legal's mate on the board. How do you do that?
Knight e5.
Knight takes e5 does now work, and we'll see in a minute why you had to play h3 first. But we'll first look at Legal's mate. Because if black says, wow, that queen is hanging for free.
Tiger 953 is a rookie.
Say it again.
He'll say Tigers and...
Yes.
Yeah, he's a rookie. He's
a rookie.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But Tiger 953 will play then?
Bishop f7.
Bishop takes f7. Check. And there's only one legal move.
Which is e7.
King e7.
And then I'll play d5 knight.
Knight d5. Checkmate.
Yes.
Exactly. We're queen down, but we have caught the king. So that's mate and 8. And yeah, I'm sure you'll have it. You get it on the board if you play that way, but obviously not all the time. But because he has to be a bit cooperative. So so really nice, and it's a nice trap. But let's see why it has to go in this order. Let's say if you don't play h3, but play knight takes e5 straight away, and what's the difference? If he takes your queen, then we get the same thing. Bishop takes f7 check, king e7, knight d5 checkmate, and we have won again, this time in 7 moves.
Oh, okay.
So why do we need to play h3 and bishop h5? So what is wrong with knight takes e5 straight away? So let's try to work that out.
He can just take with the pawn.
He can take with the pawn. And there's no more Legal's mate, don't look for it, but what does white play here?
I take the bishop.
You take the bishop.
With the queen.
With the queen. And we've won a pawn, right? We do a body count. We've won a pawn. With a knight takes e5, we took a pawn. And then we just swapped the piece. Knight takes e5. Queen takes... sorry. Knight takes e5. If he takes it with the pawn...
Yeah.
Then we have queen takes e4. And we're happy because we've won a pawn.
Yeah.
So after knight takes e5, what is a better move for black than taking d takes e5, which costs us a pawn?
If he takes knight c6 to e5.
Knight takes e5. And what does that do? Why is that suddenly better than d takes e5?
It protects the bishop.
It protects the bishop. Exactly. Exactly, Aran. And that's why, in this position, we play h3 first, and if they play bishop h5, then it works, the legal move, knight takes e5, because if he now takes with the queen, it doesn't protect the bishop. Sorry, if it takes with the knight, it doesn't protect the bishop. We take the bishop, and we've won a pawn again.
Yeah.
Yeah? So that's why that... chess is all very subtle, and it's good that we cover this. That's why h3 is the move here to set up Legal's mate. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Right. So anything you'd like to add, Rick? Sorry there.
Well, I just wanted to point out that he doesn't have to play bishop h5. He can also take on f3. Queen takes f3. Yeah, checkmate threat there. But knight f6. And there's no Legal stuff going on. So Legal is nice, but it doesn't always work. It has to go exactly in this sequence. So don't get too excited about Legal's mate all the time.
No, I just felt it was in line with sort of how I play, and I have had this pop up for me. I remember.
Yeah, no, of course, and it is when you see a chess player, you say, "Do you know Legal's mate?" If he says no, he's not really a chess player. So it is something you need to know, and especially if you're an e4 player, and it's beautiful.
So, yeah. If I can just start it from the start, Rick. Sorry.
Yeah, but start from the start. It's always good to start from the start. Yeah.
Yeah. So right. So if we go right, so I will go e4, e5, knight f3, and then they have to play d6, do they?
Knight c6. Knight c6.
Okay.
To protect. Yeah, but you can play, of course, d6 can also be played instead of, and then we just have a different way to get there. For example, bishop c4 and then knight c6, and we get the same position. So yes, d6 is possible. But let's play knight c6.
Right, I play knight c3.
No, you play bishop c4.
Oh, bishop c4, sorry.
Yeah, but again, it can be in a different order. It doesn't mean that suddenly Legal is off the cards with knight c3. But let's just follow the main line. And then he plays d6, either on move 2 or on move 3.
Then I play c3, knight.
Knight c3, exactly. So you can indeed swap those moves around, play knight c3 first and then bishop c4. Yeah. And then Legal only happens, of course, you can play all sorts of stuff here, but with bishop g4, then you might get excited because then suddenly we're in Legal's territory. If the bishop doesn't go there, it won't happen.
And then I'll play knight e5.
And knight e5 is too early.
Sorry, I've said the same thing again. And then I'll play pawn h3.
Pawn h3, because we want to try and lure the bishop to h5 where it will be unprotected. So if he takes on f3, then our Legal dreams are over. But if he plays bishop h5, which is a normal move, you want to keep the pin.
Yeah. Then knight e5.
Now knight takes e5. And
Go ahead. queen, which I would play if I was black. I'd take the queen
Yeah,
at this stage of my career.
yeah.
And then I would play f7 bishop.
Bishop takes f7 check.
He moves to e7 and then d5 knight.
Knight d5 checkmate. Yeah, and then we have Legal's mate. We've given up our queen. We've won the game in 8 moves.
Yeah, and I think this is reasonable to learn this at this part of my career.
Of course.
What I play.
Yeah, definitely, and especially because you're an e4 player. Yeah.
So when I did my own homework, and I've been obviously trying to study a little bit, and I came across this, I thought I would report back to headquarters, i.e. Rick, and let you know that. So, when I obviously brought this to your attention yesterday via messages, and you said Legal's mate, were you like, oh, fair play, Aaron's done his own sort of research, he's seen that it's in line with how he plays, and he think he needs this as a counter?
Yeah, exactly. I have a few students who love, because there's lots of other of these type of quick mates, opening traps. There's dozens of them. I have students who want to learn all of them, and fine, if that's what the customer wants, that's what the customer gets. But in chess, it's very good not to play for tricks. When Magnus Carlsen beat Bill Gates in 8 moves, if you've ever seen that video, Bill Gates from Microsoft, he was interviewed afterwards, and he said, "I did something in this game that I never do. I played for tricks." Because he had to, he only had 30 seconds on the clock, and he had to win quickly, and it worked, of course, against Bill Gates. But it's at any level, it is better not to play for tricks. Having said that, it is good to know the tricks, because if they arise, then you remember them, and you win a quick game.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for this, Rick.
You're welcome. So the move order now. It's really important to play h3 on move 5.
Yeah, so if you want it, we could do one more time, just so I can show that I know it.
One more time. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
E4, E5, F3. F3.
Knight F3, yeah.
Knight F3. And then they play C6.
Knight C6, yeah. Make sure because this is C6.
Yeah, sorry, Knight C6.
Yeah. Or D6, as we saw, that can just be a transposition of the moves. Yeah, keep going.
Bishop C4.
Bishop D4 or Knight C3, as we saw, can also be a transposition. Yeah.
They play pawn D6.
Pawn D6 to make room for that bishop that wants to come out.
Yeah, I'll play Knight C3.
Yep.
They play Bishop G4.
Yeah. Pinning your knight.
Yep, I play pawn H3.
Important to try and get the bishop to an unprotected square so you can win a pawn.
They play H5 bishop.
Bishop H5.
I then play Knight E5.
Wins a pawn.
They take the queen, sorry.
Yeah, which is the blunder.
Bishop F7.
Yeah.
E7 queen, sorry, king. And then D5 knight.
Yeah, and that's checkmate.
Yeah.
Exactly. So if they see it here and they don't fall for it, then and they take your knight, then you take a bishop, you've won a pawn, which is also a great success, but it's not a checkmate. But if they go for your queen, then you have the mate in 2, which is forced. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, Aaron. Anything else before we close this session?
No, I'll end this video, then I'll have my closing comments with you off camera.